What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate forum, which you should definitely all join. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion right here, right now, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Sleeping Warrior, Saul, Vanilla Saiyan, no, I'm only joking, Chocolate Saiyan, Ranty Flat Earth, 10th Man, and I think that's pretty much it. Did I miss anybody?
I was hoping you actually would do that.
Yeah, me too. That was funny. I think Anthony and Ranty might not know what's going on. That's pretty funny.
You caught it yet? Have you seen it? Have you seen the parody of you?
Of who?
Ranty. I spoke to Ranty this morning and he hadn't actually watched it at that point, so I was like, this is your character, check it out. We'll obviously be discussing it. Maybe he hasn't because he's at work. Chances are he hasn't, but you never know.
I've just got in. And Encimio and Kamiya Man, was that Ranty? That's the only one I couldn't figure out.
Yeah, that one was Ranty. It was done with a slightly strange accent, but...
I'm the one that shared screens.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
He says, these are all science words.
I should have known.
These are all science words. That was Ranty.
These are all science. I gotta give a shout out to that guy. What's his name? Datrh?
Yeah.
Darth. He's great. That was the greatest parody I've ever seen. I don't care if he's a Glober. I don't care. That was awesome.
They got you pretty spot on, Nath.
Oh, thanks a bunch. Right, let's do some housekeeping. Any signs of Earth curvature?
Not from California.
Oh,
the cowbell.
My bad. Hold on. I should have actually introduced them. We've actually got people in Discord. I just haven't said hello to them. Hello, everyone in Discord as well. Cue the tumbleweed.
Crickets.
Yeah, cue the tumbleweed. Any signs of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Nope, no axial rotation of the Earth-based variety.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Nope, no distance measurable to a light in the sky.
Any scientific evidence of gravity? Did you wanna add something? Flatulent unicorn?
What's gravity?
Hold on. Flatulent unicorn, did you wanna pipe up?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh.
You're making quite a lot of background.
No, I just said when you asked for the distance to the sun, I also said, what about the moon as well? Is there a confirmed distance to the moon?
No. Any evidence of the distance to the moon? Anyone? Anyone at all?
Nope.
No.
I
don't know.
Just a little thing, on the normal housekeeping questions.
One more time.
Just to spice it up.
One more time. Or maybe not. Any evidence that we can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container? Jeez. You're causing quite a lot of audio chaos now, Flatulent Unicorn. Gas pressure without a container? Anybody at all?
No, it's impossible. Show us a demonstration, please.
You can't have gas pressure without a container. Nth
You
man.
should ask Flatulent Unicorn. You should know.
Nice one.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Nope. Just a couple of graphs.
Molten iron core, gravity, Coriolis. These are all science words.
I was listening to Ranty and George last night, and I listened to it this morning, and George was demonstrating that seismology can do this, that, and the other, and Adam gave a really valid counter, because George said that X-rays can see through your body. You don't have to cut open your body to see through your body. Adam responded and said, well, X-rays are only seeing through like a couple of centimeters worth of your body, or maybe a foot. Let's say there's a foot of your body. That's not really comparable to looking through thousands of miles of the Earth and interpreting graphs. And George then responded with a total misrepresentation of Adam's point, in which case Adam got upset, George left, and the point got lost. But it remains a valid criticism. Seismology is the claim by the ballers that we can see through the center of the Earth, right? And we can perceive, extrapolate, refine, perhaps, the interpretation of said extrapolation or the results to conclude that we must be on a ball. If it was that simple, we'd all be on that side of the topic, wouldn't it? You can't extrapolate from squiggly lines and colored charts and stuff the shape of the Earth. You can believe that it's that shape, and you can claim that it's that shape based on the extrapolation or the interpretation of, but it isn't proving it, because I can claim that the exhaust smells out of my car prove that we're on a flat plane. It doesn't prove that we're on a flat plane. You can claim it, but there's a difference between claiming it and proving it.
Any evidence of the R value?
Nope.
That's it. That concludes housekeeping. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I walked into George rumpusing the hell out of Adam, which I've never actually heard before. I've never really heard Adam get rumpused like that, and Adam literally sounded pissed off because he couldn't get a word out. After George laid everybody out with the greatest word salad crap that I've ever heard. And then would not let Adam respond. Like, George is out of his mind.
The only tactic they have. That's all they can do. Make sure the rebuttal isn't heard. Make sure the question doesn't reach them in a coherent manner, so they have to respond to it. That's it. That's the only tactic.
Can I just call someone out on Discord?
Yeah, of course you can, Flatulent Unicorn.
Yeah, Dougie, man, does your microphone work? Because you never say a word. You're on here like every night. You never say. And you're a globe head, by the way. Dougie,
Share your pain, I think is the expression.
Mr.
Yo.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I normally listen through work while I'm at work, and then by the time I finish work, 5 o'clock, I'll stay and hang out and get involved a bit. But I can't really speak while I'm at work, that's all. I just come and listen, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So by now, surely you're a flat earther.
Me, I ain't got a clue in between.
Oh, you haven't? Fair.
No. Yeah, anyway, I'm at work, so I can't really speak. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks for responding. At least you gave us a word that you're a set of lips at the end of a microphone.
Yeah, it's just that sometimes I try to get on Discord and it's full, and there are people that don't say anything. It's just annoying. Anyway, carry on.
Hello.
a Earth-shaped investigator. Was that Arwen speaking just?
No, it's Legolas.
That was.
Hello, Vanilla saying hello, Nth Man.
Arwen, how did you not know? I'm pissed off at you. How did you not know who you were?
No, I didn't.
Are you kidding?
I didn't see the full sketch the first time. I only saw the bit after the guy joined, and I
okay. Because I was gonna say I've been calling you Legolas for a year now, bro. Like, there's no way you can't know that that's you. All right, now it makes sense.
Right.
All right, cool. But that was great anyway.
Oh, hello to Soul.
Hold on 1 second.
Soul.
Hold on 1 sec. 1 sec.
Hey, snoozing soldiers here as well.
Owen, hold on 1 sec. Silence, Legolas. Flatulent. Yeah, he's already popped himself on mute. Thank you, Legolas. You may continue.
Fair enough.
Hello, Legolas.
Hello, Saul.
Hello.
Did your kid make any drawings today?
Hello, whoever that was in Discord.
Not yet.
Yeah, I was on the other night and I actually muted my headset and I said I was from Australia and you asked me if I was a Kiwi and Arwen said, I think he's Australian. I couldn't hear that 'cause somehow I'd muted it. I heard it later. So yeah, I am a Kiwi, but I do live in Australia.
You are a Kiwi?
Yeah.
So I knew it. So I got the accent right. It's just you happen to live in Australia. What a weird coincidence.
That's right. Yeah.
Isn't that strange?
So I thought,
for my
clarification, I thought you guys weren't answering me.
Hold on, just do a quick shout out. Sorry. Shout out to Sean Tibbetts says, nice to have met you Saturday. Oh yeah, it's nice to meet you too, Sean.
That was
Sorry,
for me.
what did you say, Chocolate?
No, just for my clarification, what's a kiwi? Not the fruit, the reference. Huh?
Somebody from New Zealand. There's a subtle difference.
From New Zealand. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, there's a subtle difference between the accents, and if you're not from New Zealand, it's difficult to distinguish between them. If you are from New Zealand, they get really offended by it if you get it wrong.
The kiwi bird is the national bird. The national bird in New Zealand, they're referred to as kiwi.
So there you go. That's why they call them Kiwis.
Hey, Nathan.
Cool.
Nathan, that super chat was meant for me, it wasn't for you.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How'd you know?
It said nice to meet you, so it has to be me.
Oh, right, so it couldn't possibly be me.
Could have been for Tony, actually. Who knows?
So, just before you joined, Tony, we were talking about... I don't know why I'm calling you Tony. Sleeping Warrior. We were talking about you pulling apart some of the names of some of the people on the other side of this argument, like Soundly and Rumpus, because it came up in conversation and someone was like, oh, it'll go in the dictionary. I was like, it already is. It's a word that means to cause a disruption or a disruption. Yeah. Shout out to Trish Blythe, says, I'm a Kiwi too. And then she gives the demonic 666 sign. Thanks for the super chat, Trish.
So, probably worth asking, seeing as though it seems to be one of those quiet shows, but did anybody see Tim Osman's last hangout?
I just asked you a question. You've completely ignored me.
Oh, I thought it was a rhetorical. Sorry.
No, I wanted you to detail some of the names that you looked into. I couldn't remember if it was back on your Anthony Riley channel or if it's a video that I could go to, but I remember you discussing all of their different names that you'd looked up, their origins, and I just didn't know if you fancied elaborating a little bit on maybe some of those other names. I can't remember the list.
Yeah, Soundly is sound lie. The Rumpus is a noisy disturbance. Sly Sparkane, obviously Sly. Just trying to remember some of the other ones. I can't really remember the other ones. There was a few of them that were interesting.
Streamer.
What?
GeoStreamer.
I can't remember what GeoStreamer meant. I don't think GeoStreamer meant anything in our language. I can't remember. I can't remember, Nathan. There was quite a few. Some of them have come and gone now, though, over time.
There's Wolfie as well,
Yeah, I
wasn't
said
there?
I can't.
Wolfie.
Yeah, Wolfie was in the Urban Dictionary or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can't
If
remember
you
what
look
it was
in
though.
the Urban Dictionary for Wolfie, I can't. It's got a description for it, and I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. But yeah, it does exist as one of those Urban Dictionary words.
Certainly, rumpus is a real word, right? It's just we've made it or popularized it. Although it's obviously the namesake of one of our opponents, the fact that we've used it so often is made it a popularized term amongst the community of flat earthers. When someone's talking over you, that's rumpusing.
Oh yeah, yeah. Rumpusing is going to go down in folklore as one of those adjectives to describe an arsehole. I mean, somebody that speaks over you. Let's talk about Tim Osmond's last hangout because it's interesting.
Go ahead.
Anybody see it? Tim Osmond's latest hangout. He basically narrated the contents of the paper that I've submitted a copy of, and he took a great issue with the typographical errors in it, of which there are some. I did deliberately plant some so I could see which copies were getting leaked, and just so I could see where they went. Although, granted, there were others that I didn't know about. So he should pointing them out to me now, which means that if and when I do get this back to have another go with it for whatever reasons the teacher decides, at least I know the bits that I can change without having to pay for somebody to proofread it. So on that respect, from that perspective, he's done me a favour, really. But what he wanted to challenge was the contents of the paper. But what was really interesting is they had that post hangout with Spurs, and they didn't address the contents of the paper. They addressed the contents of the arguments, but they missed the point of the paper, which was to question whether the provision of teaching in the teaching of the Copernican model complies with the rules. It's not about how strong the arguments are against the Copernican model. It's about whether the provisions of the law are covering the scenario that I've highlighted. Namely, is it the promotion of a partisan political subject in the national curriculum, or is it not? And it's defined. All the pieces are defined in the paper, and it goes through them all piece by piece. But they completely ignored all that and focused on whether or not Eratosthenes had been correctly represented, or whether or not. I mean, Gempanda challenged the application of the word political, and it was literally cited in the document at the bottom of one of the pages what the judge said about the meaning of the word, like partisan, political, and he described partisan as one-sided. And political is not narrowed to the politics, because everybody thinks political means politics. Well, the judge expressly stated that it is not as narrow as that, and cannot be treated to be as narrow as that, and that addresses the word political. It didn't require any definition because we all kind of know what political means. And if we don't know, the judge has defined it for us, and it was correctly cited in the document to demonstrate how we should interpret the word political. So I didn't need the definition. It was already cited in the document from the judge's words. So if the provision of teaching of the heliocentric narrative does not comply with the rules, then it's unlawful. So it's the provision of the teaching that's being questioned, not the teaching itself, the provision of the teaching, because it has to comply with the provisions of 406. The provisions of 406 state that no topic should be treated as no topic should be promoted as partisan political in the teachings of any subject matter in any school. But we have something that I assert is promoted partisan politics and governed by the provisions of this act, and should be dealt with according to the provisions of this act. And that's the point of the paper. And that point was completely and utterly missed by Gempanda and Tim, to the point that I've asked Nathan to contact them and see if we can have a proper adult discussion on the point that the paper made, not the point that they think or want the paper to have made, or the point that they think that I was making, the actual point that was made, which was the provision of teaching in the teachings of the national curriculum with regards to this topic, and not complying with the rules. They're not providing a balanced representation of opposing views. They are promoting partisan political views, and it's unlawful. That's the point. So it's not even about what shapes the earth. The shape of the earth is irrelevant, and Tim pointed out that the word flat had only been mentioned twice in the whole document, and he was right to point out that that was an intentional a control. I deliberately didn't mention the word flat on purpose, just because I didn't want it to be too pro flat Earth. I wanted it to be about the topic of whether or not this teaching is lawful or not about the subject matter. So let's have the conversation, gentlemen. If you think that I've got this wrong, let's have the conversation. Arrange it with Nathan, me and Tim, or me and Gem Panda, or whoever, and have the conversation. Not fight and scream and ball abuse. Just tell me how it is possible that the teachings of the Copernican model are not governed by the provisions of that legislation that has been identified, because they seem to be clearly included. And I don't think you guys understand what's going on.
Just FYI, I only contacted Tim.
Doesn't matter.
It's a curriculum they have to follow.
It's the curriculum's got to follow the legislation.
Yeah, this isn't a dig at teachers.
No, it's the way that the education is administered by the Secretary of State, by the headmasters, by the governors. They have to do it the way that the law states. And I believe that the provision of the teaching in the topic of heliocentrism fails to comply with the provisions of 406. It's that simple. And the reasons why I say it is because the definitions are given by the judge, and I assert that the heliocentric model falls clearly within that. And Tim and Gem Panda and whoever have got to defend that position to prove that I'm wrong. It's not about the shape. It's about how it's being taught. And at the end of the day, if there isn't the balanced representation of opposing views, it's unlawful. They commit one of two offences. So I don't really care which way around it is. One of them's being broken. In my submission, they're both being broken. But I want to see the reasonable arguments against it, because that is the point of the paper. So let's answer the point that was asked, not the point that wasn't.
Just to summarise that point. So
it might be.
Just to summarise. So the point, which I thought was made perfectly clear, is 406 well, it can't be all, can it? It's one then the other. 406 and 407.
So if 406 doesn't apply, then 407 doesn't apply.
Right, it's 406. Yeah, exactly. If one doesn't apply, then ultimately the other can't apply. So yeah, 406 and 407. That's the point of the paper. That's what you're arguing against, not whether or not it's valid to argue either or position. You know, in the paper you mentioned electric universe. It's not relevant to argue whether or not those positions are valid. That is not the point of the paper.
Correct. So let's not get bogged down in whether Eratosthenes did or did not do something, or whether he even existed. That is a point I did bring up, because one of the points that the judge made was testing the veracity of the available evidence. Well, if people are going to argue that, from the evolution side, that Christ didn't even exist, nobody can prove that Christ existed, well, that same argument works against Eratosthenes. Did he even exist? We can't tell that Eratosthenes even existed.
Hold on. You're now leading people off in the weeds. Yeah, that is an arguing point that we might have here as a debating point. But the point you're making is that 406 and 407, whether or not it's in breach, the education structure, that is, of those laws, that is the point. Not whether or not Eratosthenes did anything or existed comparable to Jesus. That is a talking point of the paper. But it isn't the point of the paper. It's an example within the paper with site-specific examples. That's not the point to argue. Yeah, we can. Yeah. We do all day. But that's not what it's about. It's about specifically in law, 406 and 407, are they in breach by essentially being a partisan political viewpoint taught to children? That's the point.
So it's not about, I mean, let's be honest, right? The promotion of partisan politics in any subject of the tuition or the college or the school, promotion, we all understand what that means. Party political simply means one-sided, and it isn't limited to whether or not it's Labour or Conservative or whatever. It's not limited to that. It's limited to the definition of political, which you can just Google it. Gem Panda took issue with the meaning of the word political. Well, I gave the judge's words that said it is not limited to the meaning of the word political. But if you go and look at the definition of political, then you'll see that that's defined as the current affairs of running a country. Well, the provision of education would be the current affairs of a country, right? So it is clearly political, not the teaching of not the subject matter itself, the teaching of it, the provision of the teaching in the national curriculum. So yeah, we can argue about what shape the earth is. That's not the point. The issue is it being taught consistent with what the rules require or not? Nathan got this, but I was surprised when Gem Panda and Jeremy, Tim, I was surprised when they didn't get that point, because that is the point of the paper.
Okay, so shout out to Trish Blythe. I don't really understand the relevance of this, Trish, but I'll read it out nonetheless. Just, can someone explain to Arwin why him saying he has an IQ of 160 is silly? Why so conservative, Arwin?
It's at least 200, Arwin.
That entire thing was based on very preteen youth things, okay? So, I already stated that would probably be a peak result. Like, if I was properly prepped, boosted, and motivated, then I might manage that.
I'm pretty
That's
sure
not my average at all.
Pretty sure you could hit at least 180 with a couple of Red Bulls in you.
No. Never.
But 160, that's perfectly fine.
I don't know. I'd have to do it again, but I don't really feel like it. I don't know. Why? What do I really have to prove anyway?
No, presumably you brought it up, right?
No, I didn't. People or trolls brought it up, and I kind of just automatically answered what I thought was a sensible answer, according to my memories and everything, and that's it.
And
I don't really
160
care about
IQ is super genius.
Is it?
So back?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. If you say so.
What were we going to say, 10th man?
While you were expressing 406 and 407, I was thinking of what George Netanyahu did to Brian Mullen to shut down his ability to give a counter.
Yeah. I mean, 407 requires the balanced presentation of opposing views. If 406 is breached, it's like the get out clause that allows them to get out of it. But let's say, for argument's sake, that 406 is actually breached, do we get the balanced presentation of opposing views, or do we get dismissed with ridicule? And I would say we get dismissed with ridicule rather than have a balanced presentation of opposing views, because there is no conversation. They don't treat us like seriously. And at the end of the day, we are asking, how do you have gas pressure next to a vacuum without containment? You can't just dismiss that with ridicule. You need to have the balanced presentation. And it says balanced as well. It doesn't say the biased presentation of opposing views. It says the balanced presentation. So we don't even get the views presented anyway. But if we do get them presented on the rare occasion, they're biased with ridicule. They laugh at people because they said, "Oh yeah, but the flat Earth, there is an argument for flat Earth, but it's a bit stupid because derpa, there's an edge and all that kind of stuff." Well, all we're asking for is that there is the balanced presentation of opposing views, and that is what the law says that we're entitled to. But we don't currently get it, and I think that that's wrong, and that's why I've done the paper, because I'm challenging that. I don't think that we're being told the right stuff.
Yep, that happens all day long, all week long, and all year long in our local governments. When the people vote for a certain thing and it passes 70 to 30, let's say, then they shop it to a judge and says, "Oh, that's racist. So we're not going to allow 70% of people to vote and make this thing part of the legislative law now." So it's just there to give you an appearance that you have a choice, but they control everything.
Yep. I mean, at the end of the day, if they were to simply allow the balanced presentation of opposing views, that would be lawful. But they don't allow it. They dismiss it with ridicule, and that's not lawful. And that is the point I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say, look, guys, there is a conversation that we need to have here. Can we have it, please?
I don't know if you remember me mentioning this to you, Anthony, a long time ago, but there was that trial here. It happened here in Tennessee, not far from where I live, where evolution was wanting to be taught in schools, and it went through the trial system, and they won the right to at least put that in the curriculum, and of course now the intelligent design or creationist aspect is completely gone, but went the other way. So it
Well,
happened
let
here.
me tell you what was an unexpected benefit of that discussion I had on the thingy. An elderly guy, a retired mathematics teacher, came to me and he said, "Do you know?" He said, "My wife only told me yesterday that David Attenborough, the wildlife guy, politically well known."
Hold on 1 second, Anthony.
world.
Hold on. Somebody in Google's with their mic open typing and it's cutting your mic. Who's that?
Got to be wrong.
It's Erwin. It's Erwin.
You close your mic, please.
Arwin. Legolas.
What?
You're cutting everyone's mic typing.
Right. Yeah. Well, maybe somebody could get Trish Blythe to shut the fuck up. Because
no
I'm
swearing,
really
please.
sick of her trolling me all day with this bullshit.
Hey, can you take care of it with your mic closed, please?
Calm
Thanks.
down, you psychopath.
No muttering. Alrighty then.
And of course he didn't listen.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I retract. I don't have an IQ of 160. Is that good enough? I've never tested it. I've never done that test. Right? At any age when that test even
Erwin, could you?
existed.
Can
Okay.
you
I
mute
never
yourself, please?
even did the current test. It didn't exist yet. Okay.
Domino's
This
Pizza,
isn't the
can I
flat
help
Earth
you?
early bird, man.
Okay then. Well, I'm glad we've all got that off our chest.
Yeah. And you know what? If I'm gonna do it, especially under these conditions, I'll probably turn out 120.
Unfortunately, Owen. Hold on.
I'm talking to everyone because this is the talk of the day now, apparently.
No, it's not.
Haven't you seen the chat? Haven't you seen the chat? Like the 30,
I haven't
40,
looked at the chat
50
once
soft
yet.
trolls shitting this thing out
Owen,
the
you've
chat
solved
all
the
day long
problem.
now.
You've already solved the problem. You've said, okay, I haven't. So having a bit of humility instantly solves that problem. No tests needed. Well done, you. Kudos.
I never even freaking claimed that I had that, okay? I said, I think that could be my peak potential under specific circumstances. I never said I have a registered 160 IQ, okay, people? Okay?
I think that's clear. I think everyone's clear.
Okay, Arwin.
No one gives
That's
a
cool. Don't let these people trigger you, man. It's all right. Don't worry about it.
I think Trish Blythe's he's gonna fucking hate me now, isn't he? Right, try not to get too triggered at what I just say. Right, I think in fairness to Trish, she's actually looking out for you, saying things like that. The way she's phrased it, can someone explain to Arwin why him saying he has an IQ of 160 is silly? And it's because you end up getting ridiculed for it. But just disclosing, okay, I haven't even taken the test. That little slip of humility will that'll do away with this problem. Excellent. So now that things are calm again, do you want to carry on, Paul? You're welcome to.
All I was saying is, that evolutionary debate happened here in the courts. I think back in the 30s. I forget exactly when it happened, but the evolutionists won to get evolution taught in schools, and now it's flip-flopped. You can't get creation or intelligent design taught in schools. It's considered pseudoscience or not science at all or whatever. So the opposing views isn't even applicable here in the U.S. I don't even know if there's a law that's regarding that. I've not even looked into it. I don't know if you've looked into it, Anthony, here in the U.S., if there's anything relevant or equal to what's there in the U.K.
I'm going to completely hijack it, though, by saying another shout out to Trish Blythe hitting Super Chat. She says, exactly, I wanted someone to explain because it was looking silly. I'm sure she was only looking out for your best interests, Owen. Trish doesn't strike me as an asshole. Thank you again, Trish, for the Super Chat. Do you want to respond, Anthony? I'm sorry I'm hijacking this point. It's not really my fault, it's Trish's. But as she's Super Chatting, she takes precedent. Sorry. Alternatively, we could have several seconds of dead air. That's also good too.
Has anybody come
Well,
across
I can
the
see it into a
Slit
different.
article?
That's the only thing the guy missed, I think. the parody was the super chats, right? Unless I missed that, I didn't see any super chats.
One for the next one, maybe from Darth. So, is anybody going to address Paul?
I think he
I'm
was
sorry,
asking
Paul.
for Sleeping Warriors response, but he's on mute.
Yeah, he's left the discussion. Erwin completely derailed the whole thing. So I've got another topic. If you want to shift into it whenever we get a chance, if Anthony does want to reply.
Give him a couple of seconds just to see if he has got something to add. Don't want to segue away completely from this subject. I think we have discussed everything. I know I chatted with Anthony about it earlier, so. Yeah,
I
moving
just
on,
wanted
Paul.
to say the Sir John Gorst case and Ebenezer Breach, head of the Education Department of Britain in the early 1900s. Have you seen that article?
Yes. Don't believe it got referenced in Anthony's article, and there was a specific reason why. I just can't remember off the top of my head. It was several months ago that that was under my nose because it was under Anthony's nose, and I can't remember the reason why. There was a reason why that wasn't cited. If Anthony was around, I'm sure he'd be helping me out, but he's presumably not. Maybe walking the dogs. But do you want to, if you can keep that as a useful segue back onto this subject, my friend? What was your name?
Alan.
Alan, if you can keep Ebenezer under your belt just for now. Anthony.
Yeah, I'm back.
Excellent. Did you hear the last question in regards to that Ebenezer dude that ended up not being in your paper?
The guy from Portsmouth. What was
That's
the
the
question?
one.
You want to repeat your question to Alan?
Yeah, I was just making a reference to it, just something I came across. Ebenezer Breach took Sir John Gorst to court, who was the head of the British Education Department, for teaching in the schools of Portsmouth that the Earth's a sphere. And Ebenezer Breach, his friends, the article says that no, it's as flat as a pancake, and this, and heretical, whatever it is, must not continue, and it's a treasonal offence if he hasn't addressed the issue anyway. There's another article in the North Waikato Times in New Zealand. I've got the article in my phone in 1901, and I think Sir John Gorst moved to New Zealand. So, and the article says the Earth is flat and is alleged to be illegal to say it's not. And then it goes on about the Ebenezer Breach and the Sir John Gorst case. So that was interesting.
Okay, so the short answer to that is you don't sound like you're in England. Whereabouts in the world are you?
Yeah, I'm in Australia.
Okay, so I've got access to the legal database currently because I'm on a course that gives me that access. And when I do a search for the Imposters Act, there's no such act as the Imposters Act in UK law, and hasn't been since as far back as 1850. That's as far back as it goes.
Right.
What does it say for the date for the Imposters Act?
Sorry, what was that?
What does it say for the date for the Imposters Act?
Well, it was just an article I saw, which was just was interesting. Back in I think it was 1900.
Okay. Well, when I've looked into whether the Imposters Act even existed, there's no evidence that there was ever, there never has been, and there never will be an Imposters Act today, as of today, which makes me wonder why are they citing it as though there is one or has been one, because there isn't one. So what that tells me is that this,
true,
for whatever reason, is satirical, at least, if not completely disinfo, because that law doesn't exist.
Right.
Never has been.
That would be the reason.
Yeah. Well, it was just interesting. It was a newspaper.
It's interesting that it exists, though, because why would somebody
from
do
the
that
1900s?
Okay, go again, Alan.
It was just interesting that if you look into it, unless somebody's forged it, this sort of stuff was being thrown backwards and forwards in the early 1900s. And I've got the newspaper clip, like I said, on my phone from the North Waikato Times. about Sir John Gorse. Now, whether the Imposters Act was a thing or not, the fact that, you know, a claim has been made or an accusation has been made from one entity to another of a, you know, fairly high credible source within the, you know, education system and within the government is, you know, just quite amazing. That alone, whether there's a case because there's an Imposters Act or not, is, you know, another thing. But the fact that it's been, you know, there's been an accusation is very interesting from that level.
Yeah. Somebody somewhere has deceived people with that. I don't know why that document exists.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I take things as a grain of salt, but it's just was stuff that I came across when I was sort of investigating this whole flat Earth thing that came my way, you know, about 3 years ago, and I thought it was very funny at first. And these are just little, you know, things along the way that I sort of came across that just sort of, you know, every time I tried to debunk it or get, you know, more evidence that this whole flat Earth thing was ridiculous, I just kept finding more and more things deeper in the archives that sort of tend to keep talking about it. And I thought, well, this is very interesting. But for my, you know, finale, after about a year and a half, I was lucky enough to share a flight from New Zealand to Australia and sat next to an aircraft engineer who used to work for the military, and he was responsible for setting up communications. So 20 minutes into the conversation, he had two sons that were scientists, and when he sort of asked me what I did, and it was all about just chatting to me first for 10 minutes, and then when I said, what do you do? And he said, aircraft engineer. I thought, this guy is going to know if the Earth's flat or not, but I can't just say, hey, is it flat? I've got to do it in a tactful way. So when he sort of explained all the engineering that he does and investigations, and his son's a scientist and a bass player because I'm into music, we were chatting about that. I said, when he mentioned this, his second son was a scientist, it's about 15 minutes or so into it, I went, it's interesting. Scientists say that the Earth's flat and there's no curvature. And he said to me, no, there is curvature. And he said, the reason I know is because before I was an aircraft engineer, I worked for the military and I was responsible for setting up communications around the world. And we used to use the curvature, 25-75 or 75-25, he said. It was such a long time ago. He said, but after saying that, at a certain height, it's virtually unnoticeable. I said, well, that's why they say it's flat and round like the United Nations logo. Anyway, then he sort of said, well, no, and this is what sort of really sealed one of the main deals for me, is he got his hands and he made the shape of a rugby ball, which we call football in New Zealand. He goes, it's like a football flattened. And I just went, tick. I went, okay. I said, so why does NASA show us this round orange globe thing, blah, blah, blah? And he didn't know the answer to this. He just went, it's probably it's just easier for everybody to understand. And he said, if everyone really knew what was going on out there, they'd all go nuts. And I said, yeah, no, that's good, mate. And he goes, but if you don't mind, I want to watch my movie now. I said, no problem. So that was one very hardcore, evidence that I happened to get face to face with somebody that had some credibility and knowledge that helped to sort of, lead me towards realizing that maybe this Earth is flat.
Well, pilots are not cartographers. They're just taxi drivers. So you're talking to the wrong people about the shape of the Earth.
Right.
Say that again?
I said that pilots are just taxi drivers. They're not cartographers. So you wouldn't get any valid information about the shape of the Earth by talking to them.
Well, no, he was aircraft engineer, but he used to work for military, setting up communications around the world, and that's when he said to me, there is curvature, and at this point I hadn't said to him, is the Earth flat? Because I know these guys are sworn to secrecy, and you can't just say that. And it was just a conversation that we got onto about music and everything, and I thought I've got to do it tactfully. And when I ran it by him, and then he just said, well, no, it's actually, he said, a football flattened, and that's when I just went, thank you very much, that'll do me. So. It's only he says, she says. From my point of view, that was just something that I experienced. And then my daughter's spoken to a fighter pilot. She's a debt collector here in Australia, so she's fairly credible. And she rang me and said he's leaving and he's sick of the lies, no curvature. And I did speak with a commercial airline pilot, 747. He flies the 747s. In his opinion, he said it's flat. But, it's all he says, she says. and you just need to do the investigation for yourself. But it's you know, there seems to be more substance towards a flat stationary plane than a spinning globe. And you know, up until the flat Earth came my way, I never even heard of it, and I just believed, you know, everything that new planets on TV, and then I started to investigate and sort of cross-examine and forensic investigate, pull it apart, use psychology, analytic skills to really squash out who's telling what without any belief system. And so far, you know, everywhere I look, it keeps coming my way that definitely flat and stationary, and that's just my views on it anyway.
Quick shout out to Dave Rakia Gafford, who says, to deny a creator is to deny reality. Rakia life. Thank you very much for the super chat, Dave Rakia Gafford. Yeah, Earth is obviously an observable flat. I think you're right though, Babs. Other than them getting a good view of what it looks like, which is, you know, that's the standard I employed. You know, I'm not going to deny it. My testimony would include me describing being a rep looking out plane windows at cruising altitude. So from that perspective, pilots get that a lot more often and a better view from the front of the plane. So, you know, but beyond that, I think Babs is right. You know, what have they got to offer? They're not cartographers. They're not devising how it looks based on what they see. So
absolutely, but if the ship goes over the curve at the horizon, 3 miles away, and you're flying in a plane at that height, at that speed, you're not going to experience some form of curvature?
Absolutely. Yeah,
I mean, it was funny. We came into Sydney just recently on the plane, and we had to turn around and go back out to come around again. The plane turned around, and as we went out, there's boats here at Wollongong that are right out in the horizon. If you look at the boats, they're like fishing boats, the big ones, you can see them right in the distance, right at that horizon line. Well, when we came back around, I thought, oh, there's those boats that are right on the horizon. We came back as the plane was turning. I looked, came right past the boat, right all the way past it, completely flat. I thought, you know, obviously it's like you're saying, the atmospheric distortion and all different types of stuff. So if there's a curve, where do we ever experience? We're going downhill in a boat. Hold on, folks. You know, this doesn't happen.
Well, that was very well eloquently put, because it's hard to explain to somebody that when you're looking out over the plane on an aeroplane, that you're not studying the horizon. You're looking at the topology of the ground beneath you and going, wow, it looks really flat. You're not going, oh, look how straight that line is at the point I can't see anymore, because at that point, everything's too far away. You're just looking at the ground and how it isn't curving. It's not taking the horizon and anything of that sort of nature. It's just literally the ground and what it looks like. Well, it looks completely flat.
Most of the times you're on a plane, you don't even see the ground. You just see clouds beneath you. The only times you see the ground is on takeoff or landing.
That's not true. I mean, I spent enough time in the air to know that's absolutely definitely not true. So some of the most fantastic views I got were when I was flying over Europe, not overseas, and it was a clear day. And it was absolutely spectacular. I could be glued to that back window 4 hours just watching the world go by. It was absolutely sensational. So to say you don't see the ground from the air is just simply not true.
Yeah, that's
I did say most of the time.
Okay, hold on. He's just dropped his qualifier in most of the time.
Here. I've taken plenty of flights across the country, going from New York to California. And yeah, there are times you don't see the ground if it's really cloudy, but if there's no clouds, you're seeing the ground.
Right.
The ground never disappears.
Correct. It's just as dependent on how often do you see a plane above the clouds. I know you're going to typically see it on takeoff or landing, you're correct, but nevertheless, it's just weather dependent. And you're right, most of the time, you don't get a wonderful view. So I'm not going to disagree with you either, but you do get plenty of spectacular views from cruising altitude on a commercial airliner.
I got a question for Babs. Babs, Alan specifically said this guy was an engineer. Why did you segue to a pilot?
Because I misunderstood what he said. I thought he said he was a pilot.
The guy who sat next to you, that is. Yeah. I don't think there's anything nefarious in that, Nth Man.
No, I'm not saying there is. I'm just wondering how he got a pilot when obviously Alan was talking about the guy being an engineer. I just didn't catch where I thought maybe I missed something, but I didn't think I did.
Complaints in the chat.
Yeah, well, he was aircraft engineer, and when he said, yes, there is curvature on Earth, I just thought, great, I don't really care if there is or isn't, I just want to know what's going on here. And then when he explained he used to set up communications around the world, they used to use the curvature, 75-25 or 25-75, he said, whatever that means. He goes, oh, it was such a long time ago, but after saying that, at a certain height, it's virtually unnoticeable. I said, well, that's why they say it's flat and round like the United Nations logo. And he goes, well, no, it's actually, that's when he made the shape. It's like a football, which is like a rugby ball to us, flattened. I went, okay, oh, sweet. And that's when I just went, you beauty. Well, that's
So, Alan,
out of a guy that's just explained to me all this engineering for 10 minutes. And he knows what he's talking about.
Just 1 second. Ranty's trying to get a word in. Go on, Ranty.
Yeah, your stream isn't working properly. The audience are complaining, and some are dropped.
The audience looks perfect from where I'm watching.
Yeah, no, they're saying that the bandwidth isn't great and it's almost inaudible.
Really?
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Okay, I'll check it out.
So, Alan, if I could drill down with you, when he was describing the 75, 25, 25, 75, and he was saying that that's at lower elevation, but as you got higher, it wouldn't matter because it's flat. Is that what he was saying?
Well, no, he said they used to use the curvature of the Earth to set up the communications around the world. And he said, and this is just figures he threw at me, he said it was 25-75 or 75-25. This is exactly what he said. He said, such a long time ago, I can't remember. But he said, after saying that, at a certain height, it's virtually unnoticeable. So I don't know what the 75-25 or 20-25 represented. I don't know what he's talking about.
What is unnoticeable?
I was just trying to get... Sorry?
What is unnoticeable? What was his context?
Well, he just said, after saying that at a certain height, it's virtually unnoticeable. So how they get 75-25, I don't know. When he's setting up communications, are they using... What does he mean by 25-75? I've got no idea what he's talking about there. And when he mentioned at a certain height, it's virtually unnoticeable. That's when I jumped in and said, well, that's why they say it's round and flat like the United Nations logo. And he goes, well, no, it's actually made the shape of a rugby ball and said it's like a football flattened. And I just went, tick, thank you. Because I knew I couldn't ask them straight out, oh, is the Earth flat? Because these people are sworn to secrecy and they're not going to tell you. It was just a very random conversation that started and we just discussed all sorts of things. And then after that, halfway through the flight, he said, oh, he goes, it's about 50 miles. He pointed out the window to the horizon. He goes, about 50 miles out to the horizon. I said, okay. What if you look behind the plane? Well, in front of the plane, how long is it? And at that point, he said, there's a pilot behind you. Why don't you ask him? And I thought, oh, okay, that's pushing it a bit much. And that he just sort of was quite blunt at that stage. And I left it at that and thought he's probably said too much already.
Well, when he was talking about certain height unnoticeable, he was talking about radio communications, correct?
Well, no, he's talking about the curvature because he said there is curvature on Earth because they used to have to use the curvature to set up communications. This is what he said. He goes, no, there is curvature on Earth. He said, the reason I know is because before I was an aircraft engineer, I used to work for the military and I was responsible for setting up communications around the world. And we used to use the curvature 25-75 or 75-25. He said, I can't remember, it was such a long time ago, but after saying that, at a certain height, it's virtually unnoticeable. And they were his exact words. So, however, whatever you get from that, I didn't quite even understand what he was saying.
I can on that one. Do you mind if I just add something, 10th Man? I know you're in the middle of something.
No, go ahead, finish it off.
So, check out Flat Earth UK, I think it's number 4, with Robin Poe, former Army radio engineer, who described her time out in Italy in an area called Ferrari, named because that's where they make the cars, but it's a very hilly region, and based on the mathematics that you've just given us, presumably, and what the book told her to do, she had to set up specific relay points to make communications work because Earth curve's getting in the way. And she explained that at one point she's trying to get a relay to work and there's just too many hills in the way. But she has the bright idea to turn the transceiver back to the point source, the original transmitter, and in so doing, at 115 miles, she got a perfect, clear connection. Now, at the time, she didn't put two and two together. Obviously, having discussed it on the show, she's by then, much later in her life, to put that two and two together to come up with four and go, well, look, the Earth must have been flat in order for that communication tower to be able to see the other communication transceiver at 115 miles. Now, the fact is, the book said to do it at a given distance, and that's how it should have been done. And when she got it to work and radioed back to say it's working, because I've got it turned back to the original transmitter, men from up high came down and told her to remove it. They didn't like it. She had to take it down. Make it work by the book with the relays at the distances it says.
Wow.
So
Really?
check out that interview. So that's Robin Poe. I think it's number 4. It might be number 5. It's one of the very, very early shows I did with Robin Poe. And she gives her testimony in that exact regard about her time out in Ferrari. So check it out.
So 115 miles, you said?
Yep, 115 miles.
Wow.
I think the relays were supposed to be like, 26, 27
And
miles.
the boys
like
swooped down and said, no, we can't allow that.
Correct.
Even though she got the signal that she was looking for.
Yeah, it worked. It
Wow.
worked perfectly, but the people who came down, had a meeting, and then a bigwig came down to her and said, you've got to remove it. And when she asked why, she said, I don't like it. I don't like it. Take it down.
Because it was not supposed to work.
Yeah. No, I'm going to say
Very
that to
true.
her. Like I say, she only gave a testimony in that regard upon coming across the subject of flat Earth. And that was obviously part of her testimony, because it's her eureka moment. She's experienced it for herself firsthand and under strange circumstances. I've got it working. I'm an engineer. That's what that's what my job is. It works. Give me praise. What's that you say? Take it down, you don't like it. Well, that's going to stick in your mind. It's like a sore thumb, especially when bigwigs from on high have come down to make that call. So, yeah, like I say, that's all in her testimony. It got criticism from my mother. So she watched that show and she was like, when it got to the point that she should have summarised and said, because the Earth is flat, I wouldn't have got a 115-mile transmission unless it was flat. But that kind of wasn't directly aired by Robin Poe. She didn't make that summary. She made the point clear. It was perfectly clear to me, but we're obviously talking on the same wavelength, and my now a bit older mother didn't, say, well, it needed summarising at that point as well, rather than you going, because she sort of said, well, and I got a 115-mile connection, and yeah, because obviously, that was kind of how she phrased it, rather than saying, well, obviously, because you realise I could only get that connection because the Earth is flat. She just didn't say those words in that sort of concise way. But early days for me as a host also, my fault too. But nevertheless, her testimony is still absolutely crystal clear in terms of what she's describing and how it's contextualised. Anything anybody wants to add
There
before
goes
I
the
round out the
boats
live
going
show?
over the curve at the horizon.
Say again? I just heard horizon.
I said, there goes the boats going over the curve at the horizon then. It's only about 3.1 miles to the horizon, roughly. If you're getting that much of a straight line, then where the hell are these boats going? But we know that's all crap, but that's just for each person to
What's the horizon?
to look into themselves.
Right. Well, in terms of how he's describing it, the reified sphere edge should have been blocking the way. Yes, correct. Absolutely spot on. So with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this show on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live on Nathan Oakley 1980, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Of course, a massive thank you to all of today's debating panel for making this live show possible. Stay tuned if you're watching on Nathan Oakley premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!